Oh, yeah. Good morning, good people. Mark Holmes here. And as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Jobu Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. It's Thirsty Thursday. Unfortunately, it is the bye week for the Dallas Cowboys, and we're off. But we got football tonight. We got the Jags versus the Saints. That's actually should be surprisingly a really good game. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll be live streaming here from the Red Brick House before we get on to this weekend. Now, one of the things that has been kind of interesting. Now, you know, it's two sides right now. Now, for the Cowboys, it's not just enough to win. How you win is just as important as winning itself. Instead of being satisfied that we ended up having the exact same score against the Chargers that the last time we played them, 20-17, both victories. The Cowboys 4-2, one game behind the Eagles, who this weekend could be going for two losses in a row, going against Miami. Miami definitely having the strength, which is the weakness of the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know how they're going to cover Tyreek Hill. I don't know how they're going to stop that offense because they have a hard time with teams like, let's say, the Jets. But be that as it may, we're going to be triggering Eagle fans, of course, all weekend and stuff. Let's deal with our own team as we go into the bye week, because this is the opportunity for everybody to catch their breath, to kind of heal up for the stretch run, for coaches to start tweaking what they're doing, and for the Cowboys, hopefully, to get their shit together. Now, Jerry Jones is not a happy man right now. Jerry Jones is questioning his coach's philosophy. Let's take you back to before the half of the game. We had 40 seconds left. Michael Gallup, we thought went out of bounds, but didn't. You had two timeouts. You could have used one right there to save some more time to work down the field, but we didn't. We let the clock tick, 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 and we ended up with 8 seconds left and two timeouts. Ball on the 10-yard line. Mike McCarthy instead decides we're going to let it go down. We're not going to take another shot. We're going to kick the field goal and go up 10-7. With the timeout, because, you know, we looked at the Giants, who were in a similar situation, except they didn't have any timeouts. They made a play in the middle, didn't get enough time to spike the ball, ended up being halftime. But you had a timeout left. You could use the whole field. Mike McCarthy decided we're going to let it run, and we're going to go to halftime with a timeout that's useless. Most of us looked at that and said, you're being too conservative. You need to try and score points where you're having the opportunity to do so. Jerry Jones says you need to score points. The question is on this is it that Mike McCarthy doesn't trust Dak Prescott? Because that's the narrative that we get now, of course, from the talking heads. Is it that he's worried that we're going to do a turnover? We've seen Josh Allen in overtime make an interception in the end zone. We've seen teams make mistakes at halftime. Mike McCarthy is playing scared and playing not to beat themselves. Whether you like it or not, that's his philosophy. When you look at the 49er game, that's basically what happened. Brock Purdy wasn't quite into his having a perfect game like he's been playing, had some adversity, lost some key players and things. The Cleveland Browns, not having a quarterback, ended up playing great defense and hoping that the 49ers would make a mistake, and they missed the field goal. Ended up losing the game. Boom, there you have it. And as you see this, now in the NFL, scoring is down. To put it another way, when you think about the Cowboys, we have been in shootouts where we've been able to score tons and tons of points, like, say, against Denver back in the day there, where we scored 49 points and we lose because we couldn't stop on the end because we had an interception late in the game. Like it or not, Mike McCarthy is our coach, and this is the way he wants to play it. He wants to play close football. get the defense rallying, and score points when it's opportunistic, and when it's not, we're not going to do it. So let's listen in, because this is actually a really good discussion that they have on Get Up this morning about Jerry Jones and him being upset, of course, about Mike McCarthy. We as fans, if you are a fantasy football person, you end up wanting more points. You want to score every single time that you get the ball. You want to dig the deep ball, but Mike McCarthy's not going to do that. The other thing that I have issue with is, I get that you want to run the football, but there's certain ways that you can run the football that are more effective than others. You have to realize that running on first and second down, Tony Pollard up the middle, and you get 2 yards and you lose 3 yards is not going to lead to much success. He is a guy who needs to be outside. So you look at that and say, why are we continuing to run up the middle? We literally called that during the game. It's like, here we go. Watch. Mike McCarthy's going to run up the middle for 2 yards. And that ain't cutting it. That's not working. The other thing is why are you targeting Michael Gallup as much as you're targeting Brandon Cooks and CeeDee Lamb? You didn't have a single drop, a single incompletion when you threw to those two guys. You couldn't say the same with the 10 targets that you took towards Michael Gallup. He came down with 3 passes. That's not going to cut it. So that's where we look at Mike McCarthy and have to question and see where we go from here. Because that was great that we ended up beating the Chargers. But the Chargers defense, it's a great front seven, but it's not a great defense by any stretch of the imagination. So let's go to Get Up and see what they have to say about all of it. All right, so 2 things here. Mike McCarthy, of course, is Mike McCarthy, okay? You question his play calling, you question his time management. Whether you liked it or not, that was what Mike McCarthy wanted to do. He wanted to kick the field goal, go at halftime 10-7. We don't necessarily agree with it, and it's, of course, easy to be the guy after the fact that's going to go ahead and say, you should have done. But when you're in real time and real space, he was looking at this and saying, the Chargers aren't making any hay as far as their offense goes. In fact, the Chargers, the only way they really scored was, well, that first drive before the team settled down. And, of course, the mess up on the special teams, which was a blown call by the officials, mind you. It was hands to the face to Jalen Tolbert, and they didn't call it. Had they called that, it wouldn't have had the ball, and it wouldn't even been that close. So it was the mistakes that ended up being what kept this game closer than it should have been. Had Michael Gallup caught that pass down there, it'd been busted wide open, and it would have been a totally different game. But Mike McCarthy said, we don't want to make the mistakes because our defense can shut down Justin Herbert, one of those top-tier quarterbacks that you always hear about, okay? It's funny how he was rated so much higher than Dak, but yet he can't beat him. But be that as it may, the thing is, Micah Parsons goes on and says, listen, Dak Prescott gets scrutinized more than anybody else in the NFL, which is true. It's true. There is a bias to it. Mike McCarthy even went through and reiterated about that same thing, that he's amazed that Dak Prescott is able to function with all this and should be praised for just taking the shit that he takes every single day. Let's listen in to what they had to say about Micah Parsons on there, as well as the clock management. It's interesting, to say the least.
Do you think not doing that shows a lack of faith that Mike might have in Dak's ability to make that decision?
Not at all. Not at all. No, that doesn't get that reset ball with me at all.
Okay, so it's not an impassioned response, but it is an interesting one nonetheless. And we will start with our beloved former Cowboy. We talked about this a lot yesterday. The Cowboys get a win, and that seems to be their formula. Jerry Jones seemed to be questioning it yesterday. What did you think of it, Swagger?
Yeah, I didn't like it. I thought he could have been aggressive at least one more time towards the end zone. Mike McCarthy's defense, he can come to the podium and say, hey guys, we won by 3. So that was a very important field goal that we took before halftime. But the bottom line is the sentiment outside of that organization and that locker room is probably, why don't you trust Dak along with having CeeDee Lamb with the possible opportunity to get a touchdown? Because we know at some point during the season, you'll need that. And that's the thing. Like, this is a continuum for Mike McCarthy. Any mistake, anything that we see as a mistake, we don't overblow and think about like what you should do in that particular situation. A lot of things transpire in games. I'm in agreement with most of the majority when you say you should have took another shot at the end zone. But also, we got to remember the number of penalties that were had before that play in the first half. All of those things are taken into context when you're making that decision. But at the end of the day, it does make it look like you don't trust your quarterback in that situation, especially when you play in an offense with that type of firepower and the potential to score a touchdown.
Why are you pounding the
I mean, Swagoo is preaching up here. This was a game that Mike McCarthy realized this is an ugly game. Penalties
Ugly. It was
Let's not back up. Let's not make this thing worse. Let's just go into halftime with a lead. Look, at the 42nd mark, of course, we would all like to see a timeout. He didn't call it. But his job is to win. His job ain't to impress us on this desk. If he felt like, hey, let's just eat this 8 seconds, we're going to kick a field goal, we're going to move on. He knows the feel of the game. It was 10 seconds. It was an ugly game.
It was an ugly game.
That is a tough thing to watch as a coach. He made the right decision, and that's what Swagoo's saying. You got to know the feel. And yeah, could they need something different in a different game? Absolutely. And in that moment, they'll make a different decision.
Kimberly made a very interesting analogy in her notes last night and in the conversation this morning about the Cowboys' offense.
Okay, picture it.
Here we go.
You and your lady decide, oh, we're going to go to a 3-star Michelin restaurant. Baby, put on your good clothes.
Okay.
We're going out. So you're
I want to stop right there for 1 second. I want to stop right there 1 second. Because this is where I actually have to say, what? This is a Mark Holmes speak. This is, you guys know that what she's about to say is the kind of stuff that I say. You know, like when we were playing against Zeke, I said, listen, ladies, you know when you broke up with somebody, you know, your man, okay? Like I'll say, you broke up. When y'all were together, he was the greatest thing around. Oh, my man is this, my man is that, right? You break up, all of a sudden, girl, he wasn't about shit. You know, he like, never did, you know, I'm better off of that. Or, you know, you've heard me say, like, when we're playing against Zeke, you know you're going to be going someplace with a guy you used to go out with, right? You know he's going to be there, and he knows you're going to be there. So you make sure that you spend a little extra time on your hair and your nails. You end up finding that dress that's like pow, 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 right? You end up doing that little extra sway in your hips when you walk past and you say, hey, you know, that's the kind of stuff that I do. That's the kind of stuff that I do. And now here it is on freaking ESPN. So I'm betting that one of you producers from ESPN, and it's okay. It's okay. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. Just send me an email and say, hey, we appreciate, you know, cutting off some of your stuff. But go ahead.
So you walk in the restaurant, ooh, ambiance is nice. The mood is right, everything's good. You sit
Seriously?
down, starving because you haven't eaten all day, because you're going to a 3-star Michelin restaurant, you are hungry. Then you see the waiter from a distance bringing out the plates. And you're like, oh. They put that big old plate right in front of you. And you see a tiny little portion of food, decorated lovely. But you got like a puree, like drizzle of balsamic, and then you got like deep fried octopus, like a little thing. And then you got some frisee. And you're like, this tastes good. And then you realize all the courses are that big. And so by the time you leave the restaurant, you're tapping your man on the shoulder like, babe, we gotta go to McDonald's because I am still hungry. I am not satisfied. I enjoyed the food, but it wasn't enough. And here's the problem with the Cowboys.
That's like what Mark Holmes would do.
I see moments of like, that's it. CeeDee Lamb, they remember he exists. Dak, he's using his legs. Thank you, Jesus. He's running into the end zone. This is so beautiful. And then it disappears, just like that plate of food. So I think we see flashes of what the Cowboys can be and what they did, but there aren't enough. Like, I understand what Marcus and Jeff were saying about, hey, for this game it was ugly and it's a grinder game, but it's the Chargers. Like I don't know. It's not enough
for Zay and not enough octopus.
I mean, I think one thing I know for sure is if a billionaire who's 80 years old from Arkansas says you're too conservative, absolutely too conservative. Yeah, I get what Marcus is saying. They're right. There are times when you have to play a game differently in different situations. But I do still feel like there's been an overreaction to what happened last year with Dak Prescott. Them having explosive offense was never holding them back. They ran into the 49ers in the playoffs a couple of times and lost in those games. I don't think that they need to become extra conservative. It's worked so far this season, but they haven't played a lot of very good teams. I'm not sure it's going to be enough. And so if he checked...
Mind you, here's what I want you to think about, though. We are the Seattle Seahawks, or we're trying to be the Seattle Seahawks of their Super Bowl years, which was great defense that shut people down. They ran the ball, of course, with Marshawn Lynch. And Russell Wilson had like 23 touchdown passes. Not a lot. It's conservative. Not a lot. They ran the football and they bludgeoned people to death. That's what they're trying to do. And mind you, Aaron Rodgers, who, you've seen him throw over 40 touchdown passes in a season. Those seasons aren't winning Super Bowls. The year that did, Russell Wilson threw 28 TDs and 11 interceptions.
When they play these games, and it gets more aggressive against these teams, that's fine. But coaches have always told me, you play how you practice. And right now, they are practicing in a way that suggests to me that they're going to get to the playoffs and do this same foolishness. And then every mistake, and I know this was an ugly penalty game. You know what happens when you play to have a tight game? Those mistakes get magnified. When you play more aggressively, we don't care about the penalties. We don't think about the penalties because you have a 14-point lead. So we'll see if Mike McCarthy shows the ability to be flexible in different situations.
Swagger, give me a quick final word, and we have a million things to get to today. Swagger, finish it up.
Yeah, I think Foxy makes a great point about being flexible. I think this is still remnants from the San Francisco 49ers game. Everybody probably wanted to see Dallas come out against one of the worst secondaries and put up 40 points like we saw them do in those first 3 games, and we wouldn't be having these conversations. But ultimately, like what Jeff said, they won the game. It was an ugly game. The penalties are an issue. The pre-snap, the post-snap, I don't care. The post-snap is holding and all of that type of stuff. You got to get that corrected in practice. But here's the thing. Like we all know, and the point Foxy made, at some point you're going to have to put up 30 to 40 points. You're going to have a high-powered, prolific offense at some point during the season. I think that's what everybody is waiting to figure out. This particular one, when you 12 penalties in, it probably changes your mindset about how you going about doing things.
I tell you right now, Marcus can relate to you. I took Marcus to lunch one day, and we ordered him a salad, and he literally took one look at it and then ordered a cheeseburger.
All right, we'll leave it there. Okay. Yeah. That's definitely a Mark Holmes style. That's like my analogies. You guys have seen them. I tell you what, let's see if I can do a poll on this thing. You tell me, is that stolen from Mark Holmes or is that not stolen from Mark Holmes? I'm Mark Holmes, and we're here at the Red Brick House, and of course, we're going to go ahead and get to work, and we'll keep you up to speed with everything it is the Cowboys. It will be kind of quiet, but we're going to start focusing in on the Eagles. Yeah, on the Eagles, and whether or not they're that team this year. If they're going to be the team that actually can end up winning back-to-back NFC East titles, or are they cruising for a bruising? I'm Mark Holmes, and I'll see you soon. Peace.